Hey everyone, it's Deja from Knit and Crochet Ever After, and I am doing a new tutorial for these Better Half fingerless gloves. So this is a pretty simple pattern. We are just doing single crochets. So working in the round, doing a little ribbing for the end of it, so you can see this one's on, so it's nice and easy to pull on. A little bit of shaping so that you can learn a little bit how to increase. So this is a pretty simple but fun pattern to use up some sock weight yarn. We're going to use a, 2.5 millimeter USC hook. So it's a pretty small hook. So if you haven't used this out of your set yet, now's a great time to get started. So any sock weight or lightweight fingering weight type yarn will work, and download the pattern in the link below and we will get started.
So to begin our fingerless gloves, we're going to put a slip knot on our hook, and we're going to start with the cuff of the glove. So to do that, we're going to chain 16, so just yarn over back to front, pull through your loop already on your hook, and do that 16 times. Just keep them the size of your shaft. They don't need to be super loose or super tight. Okay, I've got my 16 chains. Now it's time to start making the cuff. So we're basically just single crocheting. Most of this pattern is single crocheting. It's just sometimes it's in the back loop. So for right now, we're just going to go ahead and skip our first chain that we made and work into the second chain and do a single crochet. So I'm just grabbing the back loop. You can grab whatever you like on your foundation chain. You can also do a foundation single crochet where you make your single crochet and your foundation chain at the same time. So if you know how to do that and that's familiar, you can go ahead and do that. Just make 15 of them, because at the end of this row we'll have 15 stitches all together because we skipped that first chain. So I'm going to go through and make 15 single crochets across, and then I'm going to show you how to keep your fingerless gloves the same size for both gloves. Okay, done my last single crochet for row 1. Now I'm going to pull out a loop. You can put a stitch marker in here if you want, or you can just pull it out big, because now what we're going to do to keep our wrist or our fingerless gloves the same size, if you've seen my wrist warmer tutorial, you know this trick already, but I am horrible at keeping pairs of crocheted items the same size, because a fun fact is your mood will change your gauge. So they always tell you to check your gauge throughout your project, especially if it's a large one, because if you're happy one day and you're sad the next, you might crochet a little bit tighter when you're sad. Very strange but true fact, and I do that quite a bit. I change my gauge. I overthink it mostly is my problem. I'll sit there and be like, was I doing it tighter? Was I doing it looser? And then I end up messing up everything. So an easy way to keep this even is to stop with your first glove, and you'll see that I have a cake of my yarn. You can also do a center pull ball, which I have a video tutorial, but if you have a yarn winder, you can make a center pull cake. So I have, this is just some yarn barf here, so pay no attention to that. But I have the center that I made the first beginning part of my fingerless gloves, and now I'm taking the outside yarn and I'm going to start my second glove. So what I'm going to do is, if I can find the end, I'm going to go ahead and chain 16 and do my 15 single crochets of my first row for the second glove. So if I keep alternating every row from one glove to the next, my gauge is going to stay the same for that part of the glove. So if I get a little loose tomorrow, they'll both be loose in the same area. So if you have trouble like me keeping them the same size, this is the trick to do. Alternate every single row with the other glove. So now I'm going to do my 16 and my 15, and we'll come back and I'll show you the pattern repeat for the cuff so you can go ahead and do those.
Finished
the first row of my second glove. And what you can do so you don't have to keep dropping and picking up is work the next row of the one that's on your hook and then switch over, so you don't have to go 1 2 1 2. You can go 1 2 2 1 1 2 2 1 like that, if that makes any sense. Anyways, this is the pattern repeat that we're going to do for the entire cuff for both of these. So just alternate every single row if you have troubles like me, but we're going to chain one, and then we're going to single crochet in the back loop only. So if you have trouble finding the back loop, because when you look at it from the front, it's a little difficult to find the back loop because it kind of tilts down at a 45-degree angle. So if you turn your work sideways, you can see your V's stacking up there, so you can easily see that back loop. So you want to stick your hook, we're working in that very first stitch, stick your hook right in the center and push down, and you'll catch just that back loop. Actually, I cut 2 loops, so make sure you just catch the back loop. I actually missed everything altogether because I'm trying to see it through my camera instead of the actual stitch. So scratch everything you just saw and actually head between your first V, head right in the middle, and then push back and down. And now I have just the back loop. My brightness is turned down on my camera, hard to see. So then we're going to yarn over, pull up our loop, and single crochet. So working in the back loop only, we're going to do that for every single row till we get to the end, which I believe is row 49. Let me make sure. Yeah, we're going to go 49 rows of this. And it's going to create this ribbed fabric that's good for our cuff. So you can work kind of sideways like I'm doing, or once you get used to seeing that back loop, you can hold it straight and just kind of tilt it a little, and that'll help you pick it up. But, oops, my tail on the way here. Once you get a few rows, it's a little difficult to hold on to everything because it's so small right now, but once you get a few rows, it'll be easier to work into and hold on to. Just make sure you check your gauge beforehand or as you're working. I'm a really bad gauge checker. I'll usually start making the project first and then check my gauge, which is like what you're not supposed to do because then you have to rip it out if you're off. But if you do it like me, check your gauge. If it's too big, you can go down a hook size or you can crochet a little tighter. And if it's too small, go up a hook. So go to a D or a 3mm. So once I get to the end of this row from working in the back loop only, and make sure one thing that you can do, it's pretty easy to lose a stitch when you're doing these. Count your rows as you're going, count your stitches, make sure you have 15, because you don't want your cuff suddenly turning into a triangle. Because if you're not used to knowing exactly where your stitches go at the beginning and ends of your rows, it's pretty easy to lose one. So double check, count it before you go on. So I've finished those 15, so I drop that and then pick up this one. Make sure to keep a little record of which, like put glove 1, glove 2, and then mark off as you're going, because once you get going and you get lots of rows, you might forget which one you're on, and then you're going to have to sit there and count them, so keep a little tally so it's a little easier to remember where you're at. So now I'm going to do the same thing that I just did with the other glove. So I work in the back loop only. And this is all we're going to do. We're going to turn our work, we're going to chain one, and we're going to work in the back loop only, all 15 stitches, and we're doing that for 49 rows. So this is a good TV project, or at least the cuff is. Most of it is, but there's a part where you need to pay attention, but that does not come for a while. So go head in front of the TV and do 49 rows on each glove, and then head back over here for the next part of the instructions. Okay, so now we're going to join our cuff, and the way we're going to do that is with a slip stitch join. So we fold our 2 ends together. Let's move this tail out of the way. And then we're going to work across, going through our last row made, the stitch of our last row, and the stitch of our foundation chain. So we're going to go in and we're going to go right under those last stitch made. Don't need to do a chain or anything because we're going to do a slip stitch join. and then through the bottom bump or the bottom 2 loops, whichever you choose to grab, of your foundation chain. So you can see I have 2 loops. This is my front loop and bottom bump of the foundation chain, and I'm going to pull my hook through, try not to get caught on something here. If you get caught and you're pulling and you can't figure out what, grab the actual yarn. You can see I have that little loop there, and go right under it. Now I'm free. And then pull through the last stitch of your last row, and then pull through the loop on your hook. Pull that tight because that's a slip stitch and we want it nice and tight for our join, and go to the next stitch. So go into your next 2 loops. You can also just grab 1 loop if you want to. It just changes the look slightly when you flip it to the outside. Pull through, and then pull through the loop on your hook. So if you get this lined up really well, you get this nice and even, then you can just push through both loops at the same time. So you see I got through both. Pull through and tighten down. Make sure you're tightening it after each stitch so that you get a nice tight join. So we're going to do this to both of our gloves. I'm like, what are these things called? Both of our gloves right now, and then after that we're going to work on the body of the glove. So continue slip stitch joining your cuffs together, and we'll meet up when they're both done. Alright, I just finished the last slip stitch, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to flip my cuff the right side out. So you can see where it's joined. It's where there's already a dip, so you can't even tell. It's like a seamless join and a seamless cuff. So now we're going to work on the body of the glove. So what we need to do is create 50 stitches around our cuff. Remember, we had 50 rows, so what we should be able to do is, because these are ribbed, each side of the rib is 1 row. So we need to create single crochets in each side of the rib, and we should hopefully have 50 at the end. You can always pop in, if it's a little difficult to put your hook in a certain spot, you can always add in wherever you need to, as long as you have 50 at the end of the row. So I'm going to chain 1 to start, and then I'm going to go ahead, and remember these are kind of close together because we join them up, so we're going to put 1 really close to right where we did our slip stitch join. Then I'm going to put another one right next to it, and then I'm going to start going on each side of my V. So I have 1 on this side, or I'm calling it a V because when your ribs, if you look at them this way, they can make little V's or W's or whatever you want to call it. So you're just going to try to place them as evenly as possible around the outside. I have 1 here, and I need to get 1 on this side. Because you're working in rows on the cuff, both sides will not look the same. Pretty much the same, but not totally the same. So just kind of pull it apart as you're working so you can get 1 on each side of the V, or each side of the rib. And keep count as you go. Make sure you have 50. And do this to both sides. When we get to the end, I'll show you how to join up. But we're going to do both of our gloves, get 50 on each, and then we'll move on. And 49 and 50. So now I've got 50 stitches all the way around my cuff, and then I'm going to join my round with the slip stitch in the first single crochet that I made. I'm going to go under both loops. This is part of the straight seam and single crochet. If you've never seen that tutorial, you can go check it out and it'll make more sense. But what we do to create a single seam or a straight seam, and it's almost invisible in single crochet, is we slip stitch in the very first stitch that we started with. So pull through. We tighten that down as much as possible, and then we chain 1 and tighten that down as much as possible. And then we start our round 2 instructions. So this slip stitch kind of takes the place of that very first stitch. So we're going to work right back into it, and this is going to keep our rows even. If I move one row over every time or one stitch over to begin my next row, every time I do that I'm going to have a stair step seam, so my seam's going to slant left. So to keep it straight I got to go back into that same stitch that I just slip stitched into and do my very first single crochet. So for row 2 through 7 we're doing this over and over again. We're doing 50 single crochets around. So we're just going to go all the way around, and then we're going to join up with the slip stitch again, tighten that down, chain 1, tighten that down, and then start your single crochet in that same stitch. And that's going to give you your straight seam. If you need more help with that, just go and search straight seam in single crochet on the website, and it will pop up my video so you can see how that works. Otherwise, just follow what I just said and keep on working rows or rounds 2 through 7 on both gloves, and then we'll meet up after that.
Okay, I've gotten through round 7 of the wrist or the hand part of the gloves. You can see when I lay them on top of each other, they are lining up just right, just perfectly, so they're all staying the same gauge because I keep switching off after every row. So I have my stitch marker in this one to let me know that this is the next one I'm going to use. I'll put this one out of the way. And now we're on to round 8 instructions. So the first thing it wants me to do is to single crochet in my first 25 stitches. So as usual, I'm going to chain 1 and pull that down so I have my nice invisible straight seam. Then I'm going to go right into that same slip stitch, pull up, and then I'm going to single crochet in the next 24 because that's my first one. Okay, I did my 25 single crochet, so I'm on the opposite side of my seam because it is half of 50, of course. So what this part is how your hand gets wider down here. We need to do some increasing to accommodate that. So we're going to increase our next stitch, which means we're just going to put 2 single crochets in. So I'm going to do 1 single crochet, and then go back in and do another one. And then I'm going to do just a regular single crochet in my next stitch. And then I'm going to do 1 more increase in the stitch after, so another 2. So 1 and 2. So now we have 22 stitches left till we get back to our seam, so we're just going to single crochet in every single one of those. Okay, I'm at my seam again, so I'm just going to slip stitch that first single crochet, pull it nice and tight so we get our straight seam. And now for rounds 9 through 13, so that was round 8, we're going to do basically the same thing. We're going to single crochet those first 25 stitches, and then we're going to do that same type of increase with the 2 single crochets in 1 single crochet, and then 2 single crochets. So I'll go back over it one more time after I do these first 25, and then I'll show you that, and then then we'll do the rest of the rounds on our own since they're just the same thing. The only thing that's going to change is once you finish the increase over here, you'll have a couple of extra stitches from your previous increase to do all the way till you get to the seam. So you just keep going until you run into your seam, and then you know you're done for that round. I'm at my 25th single crochet. I'm going to do an increase. If you look real close, you can see the 2 single crochets coming out of that stitch. So we're doing the increase in the first one of those. So single crochet, go back in, single crochet again. Then we do a regular single crochet in our next stitch, and then another increase. So we're going to do that all the way through round 13. So single crochet 25, increase, single crochet, increase, and then single crochet the rest of the round. So if you're working both mittens or both fingerless crochet mittens at the same time, just keep alternating after each round. I always say row when I'm doing rounds and rounds when I'm doing rows. But we'll meet up at the end of round 13 because that will be our last round of increasing, and we should have 62 stitches at the end of that round. Okay, I just finished round 13, so if I fold my glove, you'll see that I have this big kind of increase over here, so you should see the same thing on your glove. It is totally normal. It looks a little strange at first, but once we do the next quite a bit of rounds of single crochet, it's going to curve back up and it'll make more sense and it'll look more like a glove. So for rounds 14 through 23, we're just going to single crochet again. So we have 62 stitches now with these increases that we've finished. So we're going to just single crochet 62 times. So remember, you chain one, tighten it down, and then insert your hook in that same stitch as the join, and you can see my straight seam right here. It's pretty invisible, and that's what working back into your slip stitch will get you. So as long as you single crochet in your slip stitch, you'll get that straight seam. So keep on going around all the way through round 23 with just basic single crochet, and then we'll come back and do the next. Alright, so for round 24, we're actually going to make the thumb hole for our fingerless gloves, and it's going to be the same for both the right and left hand. So the first thing you're going to do is chain one and then single crochet 26 stitches, which is going to put you right near your bump. So the next thing that we're going to do is chain 10, and that's going to create the opening for our thumb. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just make them, normal chains. Don't make them super big because you don't want like a really gigantic thumb hole. You could, I guess, but it's not really gonna help you fit your thumb through it. The 10 should be big enough for most thumbs. And then what we're gonna do is skip 10 stitches. So you're gonna look for your V's on the top of your stitches. It's a lot easier to tell than looking at all these little tiny stitches. So turn it sideways. Here's where our last stitch came out of, so that little tiny V is part of our last stitch. So if you pull on it, you'll see a little hole, so don't count that one. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work into that 11th stitch. So I chain 10, I skip 10, and then I'm working into the 11th stitch. So you will see that we have a hole for our thumb now. We're going to single crochet to the end of our round, which is another 26 stitches, and then we're going to join and begin the round after, which is going to just be single crochet, but we need to work around this chain 10. So I have my other mitt already complete for the chain 10. Get it over there. So you can see our chain 10 is already done. I've already worked all the way around and joined, and I've also done the 26 stitches of round 25. So now I need to work with these chains. So I don't want to work into the chains. I don't want there to be like little gapy holes when I'm wearing the gloves. So I'm going to work all the way around the chain. So I'm going to reach through the whole thing, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then single crochet that together. So I'm going to do that 10 times, which should cover the length of my thumb hole. So 3, 4, stitch marker in this to remind me which one is which, so that's that little sound you're hearing, sorry, and 10. So now you can see that I have a nice, easy, consistent stitch around that hole, and I don't have like gaping holes from just working into 1 or 2 loops of the chain. So then I just need to go and single crochet in the next 26, so you can see my stitch right here is my next stitch, so it's a little hard to tell sometimes if you're new, but look for those little V's in the front, and right above that is our stitch that we need to work into. You can also count back from where you join over here and count back 26 V's or stitches to where you need to put your hook if you're not quite sure where to place it. So we have finished our thumb hole. Now when we come back around, we'll work into those stitches just like we're doing here, but we're going to go rounds 26 through 37, just going around. Okay, so I finished row 37 and I fastened off the glove. So now all that's left to do is weave in the two ends, and this will be ready to wear. So just weave in those ends however you like, and we'll come back and check out the finished product in just a second. They are done. The gloves are ready to wear. They've been all woven in. They can go on either your right or left hand, so that makes it easy to just slip them on and go. Don't have to worry about it. If you have any questions, leave them below, but thank you for watching.